On the banks of the River Clyde in Scotland, something extraordinary was taking shape. Plate by plate, rivet by rivet, the Lusitania rose from iron and fire. Hundreds of men worked beneath gray skies, raising a steel colossus that would challenge the ocean itself. 4 funnels, proud as cathedral towers, announced to the world. This was the age of progress. Then, one morning in 1907, she departed. Liverpool watched in silence as the giant slid toward the horizon. Her propellers thundered. Her bow cut through the waves with brutal elegance. On deck, life unfolded in unimaginable luxury. Mahogany salons, gleaming crystal, carpets that had never known the dust of the streets. For years, the Lusitania crossed the Atlantic like a comet of iron. She carried dreams, hopes, entire lives between Europe and America. She was invincible. She was eternal. Or so we believed. On the banks of the River Clyde in Scotland, something extraordinary was taking shape. Plate by plate, rivet by rivet, the Lusitania rose from iron and fire. Hundreds of men worked beneath gray skies, raising a steel colossus that would challenge the ocean itself. 4 funnels, proud as cathedral towers, announced to the world. This was the age of progress. Then, one morning in 1907, she departed. Liverpool watched in silence as the giant slid toward the horizon. Her propellers thundered. Her bow cut through the waves with brutal elegance. On deck, life unfolded in unimaginable luxury. Mahogany salons, gleaming crystal, carpets that had never known the dust of the streets. For years, the Lusitania crossed the Atlantic like a comet of iron. She carried dreams, hopes, entire lives between Europe and America. She was invincible. She was eternal. Or so we believed. The second explosion tore through the ship's entrails. No one expected it. Boilers, munitions, coal dust. To this day, the mystery remains. But the effect was immediate and brutal. The Lusitania began to list. 15 degrees, 25, 50. Her 4 majestic funnels crashed down like felled trees. The deck tilted at an impossible angle. Lifeboats became unusable. Icy water flooded corridors where minutes earlier there had been music and conversation. 18 minutes. That was all it took. At 2:28 p.m., the stern rose vertically against the sky, exposing the giant propellers that would never turn again. And then, in a final sigh of steam and twisted steel, the pride of the Cunard line plunged into the depths. The ocean closed over her like a wound. All that remained were floating wreckage. Empty boats adrift, silence. And 90 meters below, in the cold darkness of the Atlantic, the Lusitania began its long transformation into a ghost. 90 meters below, the Lusitania found its tomb. The impact with the seafloor clouds of sediment that took days to settle. When the water cleared, the ship lay broken, silent, wrapped in the absolute darkness of the Atlantic. Up above, the world exploded in headlines. London, New York, Paris. Every newspaper screamed the horror. Lusitania sunk. The words raced across continents. Outrage rose like a tide. 2 years later, the United States would enter the war. But in the depths, time followed a different rhythm. 5 years, 10, 20. Rest began its patient work. Algae clung to the steel. Fish made the first-class salon their home. The proud funnels became shelter for lobsters. In 1945, while the world celebrated the end of another, even more terrible war, the Lusitania was still down there, slowly turning into memory and corroded metal. The ocean is never in a hurry. It simply waits. Decades piled upon decades. In the 60s, 70s, 80s, the Lusitania continued its silent dissolution. What was once British pride had become an artificial reef. Colorful corals grew where passengers once walked. Large fish rested on twisted beams. Nature does not judge, it only reclaims. Occasionally, divers descended. Submersible lights cut through the darkness, revealing fragments of a lost world. A bell encrusted with barnacles, china bearing the Cunard crest. Clocks forever stopped at 2:28 p.m. Some objects rose to the surface. Museums received them with reverence. Display cases protected them. Visitors stood before them, trying to imagine the hands that touched them for the last time. In 2015, 100 years later, fresh flowers were laid at memorials in Ireland, names carved in stone. 1,198 lives reduced to bronze. And down below, on the ocean floor, what remained of the Lusitania kept disappearing, not forgotten, but dissolving, returning to the ocean that claimed her that May Day. Today, 111 years later, robots dive where humans cannot go. Their cameras illuminate what remains. Twisted beams, lonely boilers, giant propellers half buried in the sand. The magnificent staircase, where silk-clad ladies once descended smiling, is now only a skeleton of metal covered in anemones. Above, on the surface, research vessels record precise coordinates. Technology the Lusitania's passengers could never have imagined. Satellite sonar GPS marks the tomb with millimeter accuracy. But down below, the story is nearly complete. The ocean has won. Kelp grows where mahogany once was. Fish swim where children once played. Steel returns to iron. Iron returns to earth. In museum archives, boxes hold letters, photographs, passenger lists, names preserved on paper, memories protected from time. But the ship itself, that is disappearing. Decade by decade, layer by layer, dissolving into the Atlantic. Soon, nothing will remain but the story. And perhaps that is what we must preserve. In Liverpool, where it all began, a bronze plaque turns green beneath the rain. Names engraved decades ago slowly fade. Fresh flowers are placed by hands that never knew the dead. Memory is passed down like an inheritance, from grandparents to grandchildren, from century to century. In silent libraries, yellowed manuscripts preserve lists of passengers, each name a life. Each life a story the ocean cannot erase. And out there, over the Atlantic, life goes on. Modern ships cross the same routes, safe, swift, indifferent to the grave they sail above. The sun rises every morning over Kinsale. The stars shine every night over the coordinates of the wreck. In classrooms, children learn about the Great War, about torpedoes, about the price of ambition. And on the ocean floor, a fragment of porcelain, the last trace of lost elegance, waits patiently for the sea to finish its work. Because ships sink, but stories sail forever. From above, it is impossible to tell what lies beneath. The Atlantic bears no visible scars. Waves move in the same directions as always. Clouds cast shadows that slide over the water as they always have. Only a solitary buoy, small, insignificant, marks the place where 1,000 lives ended. But descend 90 meters and another reality is revealed. In the cold darkness, the giant boilers that once drove the Lusitania across the oceans now rest inert, transformed into artificial reefs. Where superheated steam once roared, crabs now wander. Where engineers once sweated, fish now hide. On the bridge, where Captain Turner gave his final orders, only twisted metal remains. The wheel that guided the ship across entire oceans now guides nothing. And above, Irish fishermen cast their nets, unaware they work over a cemetery. In distant museums, gloved hands clean recovered bells. Framed photographs preserve the Lusitania as it was, proud, fast, alive. The ocean does not remember. It does not need to. We remember for it. In the silence of the ocean floor, personal objects rest where they fell. A porcelain doll's head, empty eyes turned toward eternal darkness. A shoe buckle, corroded coins. Each fragment tells a story that never ended. A child who never came home, a man whose pockets carried dreams of fortune. On the ruined bridge, where desperate decisions were made in those final 18 minutes, only twisted metal remains. The wheel that should have turned faster, the telegraph lever that ordered full power to the engines. All useless against the invisible torpedo. At the Kinsale Lighthouse, the light keeps turning as it did that day. 111 dawns later, it still watches over the same waters. It does not judge. It does not weep. It only shines. And in modern digital archives, names turned into data sail forever. No longer in ships of steel, but in servers that preserve every passenger, every crew member, every life the Atlantic took that May afternoon. Storms still sweep these waters. The Atlantic has not changed its temperament. Furious waves, cutting wind, lightning tearing through gray clouds. Modern ships race for safe harbors, as they always have. But 90 meters below, absolute peace reigns. Storms do not reach the dead. In antique shops, dubious fragments are sold as relics. Rusted cutlery, cracked china, real or fake, it hardly matters. Someone is always willing to own a piece of tragedy. Memory has become a commodity. But there's another way to remember. In 2026, a small boat anchors over the exact coordinates. Hands release white flowers. Petals touch the surface and begin to descend. They pass through layers of water, green, blue, gray, black. It takes minutes before they settle on corroded steel. It is a futile gesture. The flowers will dissolve in days. But for a brief moment, the present touches the past. The living greet the dead, and the ocean accepts the offering in silence.